excited to be here and talk everything housing, which obviously you all know Gary, and he needs no introduction, but I will say that today is the CEO of D.R. Horton's very last day. So let's give him a big happy send-off.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thrilled to have him here. We want to talk everything home ownership, everything affordability, availability. Obviously, I don't have to tell all you guys that it is a tough housing market out there today. There's no supply, high prices. The average rate on the 30-year fixed yesterday, I believe, hit 7.65%, which is getting uglier every day. And that makes it incredibly difficult for the first-time home buyers to get into this market. And we do know that Hispanics represent 70%, as Gary has told me, of the homeownership growth in the United States, which is just an incredible stat. So, Gary, I want to start off with you. What do you see as the biggest barrier to entry for all of these people who really want to get into homeownership but can't? Is it all the things I just said, or is there even more to it?
Yeah, I think, first of all, great to have both of you here. There's a lot of challenges, a lot of headwinds, as I like to call it, in the marketplace today. Interest rates are certainly affecting affordability, but the biggest issue by far, both now and over the last several years, has been housing inventory, just the lack thereof, which is really what's driving up prices, which is making it difficult for first-time home buyers to get into the marketplace. I was really delighted that David was actually able to make it today. They are the largest home builder in the United States, and they focus on first-time home buyer type homes. So this is going to be a really important conversation because the inventory issue right now is the biggest issue that we've been dealing with for years.
And I want to get right to that because D.R. Horton launched an express brand was a little over a decade ago. And I remember covering this story because a lot of the analysts said, you can't do an entry-level brand of affordable starter homes. It's just not going to pencil on a big scale. Stockholders are going to be upset about it. They're not going to be able to make their margins. You simply can't pencil it. And they were all wrong, were they not? And I want to know, how did you do it?
I think we just got lucky. So.
No, you didn't.
No, we kind of shifted the model in home building, and for a couple of years, our equity did suffer stock price because there weren't a lot of believers that home building was about anything other than driving higher and higher margins to make more and more money. And I think we came to the realization that there is a formula where you can compress margin, accelerate your closings, sales and closings, and even though you make less money per house, you return a higher and higher percentage on the capital you have invested. And that model worked. I mean, we built a simple house. We got away from a lot of custom changes. We got away from having all the options and that you can put into a house, and just tried to keep it simple, try to keep it consistent, and then build it on scale. And that model has worked incredibly well for us, I think.
And there was still demand for that because I know, we are in the HGTV generation. Everybody looks at all the bells and whistles. Everyone wants to remodel. We all want the granite and everything to be the best. And when you talk about it kind of, I don't want to call it stripped down, but a very basic home, why was that demand still strong when people could rent?
Because home ownership is a path to the middle class. And this is probably politically incorrect to say, but I think owning a home and locking in your housing cost is about the only way you can protect yourself from the government's printing of money and inflation. So, my mom and dad owned a house, I own a house, my kids so far, when they are ready to settle down, have been able to buy a house. And being able to lock in that housing cost and not experience that rent shock every 6 months or 12 months, or being forced to move and relocate because you can't afford the rent that you were paying, that's just not a way to live your life. So, we're doing everything at D.R. Horton we can to increase the opportunity to own a home.
That's absolutely true. And I know some people might not like this comment, but there are a lot of idiots out there like Grant Cardone that tell you that they're stupid for buying homes. But what David said is absolutely true. right? It is the stabilizing force for most families economically, but also in terms of their experience. Latinos in particular are very family-centric. The home is the centerpiece of the family experience. There's so many benefits to home ownership, and I'm grateful to you for actually making that model work, and because of you and your company, there are literally tens of thousands of homeowners today that wouldn't be homeowners otherwise.
It is hard to prove this out statistically. We do know how many first-time home buyers buy our homes. And it's 53% of every home we sell is a first-time home buyer.
And how are you?
And what is hard to determine is that if it wasn't for D.R. Horton, how many people would not have been able to buy a house at all? And I think that's at least half of our first-time home buyers.
And how are you helping them? I mean, obviously, we have these high interest rates. You have that starter property. It is lower price, but still, when you're looking to finance that home, you're at 7.5%, and even higher, generally, if you're a first-time buyer, because you might have lower credit scores. We hear about the builders buying down mortgage rates, adding incentives to get buyers in the door, but how are you able to do that when you've got higher costs for land, labor, materials, because inflation is hitting the builders just like everybody else? Are you still able to give those buyers coming in the door any kind of financial incentives?
Well, we work with our mortgage company, and I know that there are a lot of mortgage brokers in the room that probably wish we did not work with our mortgage broker. But for us, the more houses we build, the faster we can build them, the lower price we can sell them. And by combining our mortgage incentives, we qualify more people, and it keeps the housing inventory turning, and so that's something we're going to continue to do. What I will say is that our mortgage company is involved in probably 75% of our closings, but at our scale, there's still 20,000 homes closed that our mortgage company isn't underwriting and is utilizing local and banks to get done.
And how are you tackling the labor issue? Because a lot of that labor workforce was Latino, and a lot left during, a different administration, would I say? So how are you dealing with the labor issues?
You know, we treat the labor as if they're partners in our building operations. And when we set up a community and build houses, we set a production rate in that community, and then we build to it. We try to keep the labor involved in that community day to day, consistently. And that's allowed us to aggregate more trades because the smaller builders do not have the ability to build spec inventory.
You know, David, I'll say it, right? So, and I think Diana alluded to it, and that is smart immigration reform is necessary, certainly to supplement our workforce in the construction industry, but also across other industries as well. There's 11 million unfilled jobs right now in America, and they're not going to get filled magically. We're not going to be able to have babies fast enough to be able to fill that. It's going to affect our GDP. It's going to affect our quality of life. It's just something that we're going to have to address very, very soon. But I also want to tell you something that you may not know. Yesterday, NAHREP made an announcement launching the National Hispanic Construction Alliance. So it is going to be the very first national platform for Latinos in the construction industry. And you know there's over 1 million of them across the country. But the purpose of it is to expand that workforce and to help that workforce become even better at their trades, move up the ladder, so to speak, get more of them general contractors, more of them building successful businesses. It's a surprise to me that nothing like that has existed yet to date. We have a national organization. We have chapters in every major market in the United States. So I think it's a natural for us to get into that space so that we can start being a little bit more present on the supply side, supporting people like yourself and companies like yourself, along with what we do with the realtor population.
I think that'd be awesome. And I will tell you, this is my first time at this event, and the opportunity, the energy, the drive, you guys have done a great job.
Thank you.
So.
We have a salsa party later that we'd love for you to attend as well.
You obviously haven't seen me salsa. The TikTok video guys would love it.
You want to do the video?
I did bring a quick video, and I apologize. This is really more internal than external. But the company hit a milestone this year, closing our 1,000th home. So today we have over 1 million families living in D.R. Horton homes.
Incredible.
And when I was putting this video together, I was talking to Don Horton about it, and he was bragging about getting 1 million homes built in 45 years, and I said, DR, I said, over the next 10 years, we're going to put another 1 million homes on the books, and then 10 years after that, it'll be 2 million. So we're just getting started as a company.
So
It's
we're going to
amazing.
roll that?
Congratulations.
DR, can you speak a little bit to what thoughts come to mind sitting in a 1,000th home? What do you think about from where you started at the first house and sitting here with the Rivas family today?
Well, the first word I think of is impossible. Start with one house, and today you're closing your 1,000th home. I said impossible, but I knew as we continue to grow, I knew our people could do it.
I honestly didn't think the day would come that we would be homeowners. We thought we were just going to rent forever.
You got a list of questions. To us, a realtor bring us somebody over and above, somebody just walking in, and we want to sell them. But when a realtor brings as a customer, that's just gravy. And that's somebody that we might not have ever seen had they not brought them out.
My parents have a D.R. Horton, so I just kind of grew up my teenage years always hearing my mom just obsessed with her home. And it just gives me confidence to be able to tell people, like, you know, D.R. Horton is a great builder.
With our product and our pricing, we get the people in front of us. We're confident we can sell out.
When you become a homeowner, you're part of our family too.
I already feel pretty
The realtor community has always been a big supporter of ours.
That's what it's all about.
You know, in that video, I was seeing a lot of diversity there. You build across the nation. And how important is it to you to bring diversity into your showrooms? We talk a lot about discrimination in the mortgage market, discrimination in all financial markets. And how do you help bring diversity into D.R. Horton?
I think
employees and buyers.
I think it's the process of affordability from the buyer standpoint. Over 50% of our buyers are of some non-white persuasion. 25% of them are Hispanics. It is a huge part of what we focus on and do. From a operational diversity standpoint, probably over the last 10, 12 years, what we have seen is by creating opportunity, it changes the perception of people that prior had been closed out of that opportunity. And I had a woman that ran our Orlando operations. Her name was Donna Pope. And when she came into leadership at the division level, she was the first woman we had running a division operating. And Donna became the top division president in the company for 3 years running before she retired. Today, I think we have over 20 women running profit centers for us. So, and the same thing is true about minorities as it is about women. You know, the construction industry had for most of my career was heavily male dominated. And I do think that's
It
changing.
still is.
Well, you got Cheryl Palmer now. She's doing a great job. And we have some leaders coming up in our company that are going to change that perception as well.
Well, we're going to hold you to that.
Oh, you don't have to hold me to it. I guarantee it. I'm a driver of it. The people that drive our company that make us successful are our sales agents. And they are by far dominated across. I mean, they look like their customers. And they're predominantly women. And they are tough, they are focused, and they have no choice but to, because most of them are supporting their families, be successful. And now we're just bringing that up through the organization.
Great. And I know a lot of home builders don't like to get into this area that I just briefly want to touch on because it does tend to be political. But Gary, I'm going to put you on the hot seat.
I don't mind being
I
political.
know that. That's why I'm going to do it.
He's a very political guy.
Yeah. Regulations, zoning, restrictions, some of it related just to overgrowth, some to climate, some to other issues. Builders are having difficulties, but we do want to protect the planet. I will admit to everyone here, I'm the real estate and the climate correspondent for CNBC. So, you know, some regulations are important, but you see them mostly as a barrier to getting more affordable housing. Talk about that a little bit.
I do. Talking about zoning for a second. Zoning was created originally to segregate communities by race. I mean, some people may argue about that because there's other purposes for it, of course. But that's now illegal. But zoning still segregates people by affluence, by wealth. And, you know, the home is the primary source of wealth for most families in this country. So I understand why people want to see their property values remain high. I guess the point that I'm making is these zoning rules are imposed by elected officials who are responding to the desires of their constituents, their communities. And that NIMBYism mentality, because people truly believe that if we change these zoning laws and we start to allow apartment buildings or less affluent homes in our communities, it's going to affect my property value, it's going to affect my equity, my home equity, my wealth. That's a very tough mindset to break. And there is some truth to it, but I think it's dramatically exaggerated. The fact is that when there are affordable housing in communities, it improves the quality of those communities because it improves the workforce. It increases the tax bases in those communities. We need to create an awareness campaign. We need to educate the community better about why affordable homes, in particular neighborhoods, is not a negative, it's actually a positive. I think it starts there. Then when the community starts to put pressure on elected officials, then things will start to change. But I do believe that a lot of those zoning rules that are out there that are creating more barriers, that are creating more costs, are driven by NIMBYism.
NIMBYism is one part of it, absolutely. I see it everywhere. I live in Washington, D.C., and I still see it there. Part of those regulations, though, are environmental.
Yep.
Where do you stand on that, given what we've seen in the past year?
Well, I live in California, which kind of set the bar in that regard. And we all want to see our communities and our environment to remain healthy and clean. I do believe that for a good percentage of it, it's helpful, it's necessary, but there has to be some balance. I do believe that sometimes those regulations and rules go a little bit too far. We have to balance the well-being of our communities, of our people, with the well-being, of course, of our planet and our communities in terms of environment as well. So I do support them fundamentally, but I do believe that there's room for pragmatism when it comes to environmental regulations.
And David, what is D.R. Horton doing to make their homes not just more resilient, but to make the construction process, the homes, everything within construction, which accounts for 40% of global greenhouse gas emissions, is real estate? How are you making your homes more sustainable and resilient?
Well, I think the energy codes, the building materials, everything is moving to a more sustainable level. The houses we build today compared to the houses we built 25 years ago, no comparison in the cost of maintaining them or in the cost of heating and cooling them. Just to pile on a little bit of what Gary was saying, I think that there is a time and a place, community by community, for certain controls, but what is taking place today is before it was racial discrimination. Today, Gary's term was something else, but to me, it's economic discrimination and blocking people out of better schools because you don't like the way they look, or to me or because they just don't have the same financial backing that other people do, it's just wrong in my mind. And we fight that every single day. But if you look at the practices of building houses today, everything has got to be more efficient. You've got to reduce cost everywhere you can. And part of that is how you build the houses, which I think the production process today are significantly less greenhouse gas emissions being generated because it's a logistics game. You got to get the materials, you got to get the labor to the communities in the most efficient way possible, because that is what is one of the major costs in housing, is just getting things to the job site.
And before we get pulled off the stage here, we have just a couple minutes left, but I want to get both of yours. I'll start with David. We are in a really strange housing cycle. That's where we started this, as all the stats that I just put out there, and very difficult. Home prices are still going up, sales are going down. The builders, they were doing okay, but the most recent builder sentiment survey had it go into negative territory for the first time in a long time. Give us your prediction of what's going to happen over the next year or so in this current strange housing dynamic. More affordable, less affordable? How are we going to get people into homes?
I think housing costs is going to continue to go up. There's just every factor that pushes cost is in play, whether it's gas, diesel, labor, materials, all of it's going to continue to rise.
Despite what the Fed's doing?
Well, there is a housing shortage in the U.S., and I know there are a lot of people that talk about that, but it is, back in 21, 22, we probably had 15 people trying to buy every house we could produce. Today, market has completely changed, affordability and the ability to qualify, much more difficult. But the same number of buyers are still out there if you can achieve a price point that they can afford to pay. And so that is where everything that we focus on is, how do we improve housing in the United States by offering something people can afford and then presenting it to them and get them closed.
And Gary?
Yeah, I think that I believe in supply and demand principles. And I think fundamentally over time, those things will balance out. I think that David's correct. I think in the short run, it's going to continue to be challenging. Affordability, that is. The supply and demand dynamics are just out of whack. Affordability is going to continue to be difficult for at least another year or two, in my opinion. Yes. I think we'll start to see the market stabilize a little bit and balance out that dynamic probably in a couple of years. But you will see, I think, the resilience of the Latino community continue to move forward for a number of different reasons. The Hispanic homeownership rate has increased for 8 consecutive years, and I think there's 2 reasons why that's continued to happen. One is that Latinos tend to find a way. They will pool resources together. Families will come together. Multi-generational families will do whatever they have to do to buy that home. But secondly, I think Latinos will also migrate to communities that there are jobs and there are more affordable housing. So I think it's not going to be across the country in a uniform way. I think there's going to be some markets that are actually going to do very well in the next couple of years.
And I think we got to end it on that because we have 10 seconds left. So thank you
Diana.
so much.
David, congratulations.
Thank you.